Picture this: you're sitting in a palace that makes Versailles look like a garage sale. Gold drips from every surface. Precious stones catch the light like captured stars. And across from you sits one of the wealthiest men on earth, sliding a briefcase toward you that contains documents worth 100 million. In today's money, that's over 400 million. All you have to do is say yes. Muhammad Ali looked at that briefcase, looked at that king, and said the two words that would define the rest of his life: I refuse. What happened in the next 10 minutes didn't just shock a palace full of royal advisors. It revealed the heart of a man who understood something most of us never will: that some things in life are worth more than all the money in the world. This is the true story of the day Muhammad Ali chose his soul over a fortune that would have made his great-great-grandchildren billionaires. It was December 1978, and Muhammad Ali was sitting in the opulent palace of King Khaled ibn Abdulaziz Al Saud in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. At 36 years old, Ali was nearing the end of his legendary career. He had recently regained his heavyweight title for the third time by defeating Leon Spinks, cementing his status as the greatest boxer who ever lived. But here's what most people didn't know: despite being the most famous athlete on the planet, Muhammad Ali was struggling financially. Boxing purses in the 1970s, while substantial, were nothing like today's astronomical figures. And Ali's legendary generosity meant money flowed out of his accounts as fast as it came in. He gave to anyone who asked, supported numerous charities, and maintained a large entourage that required constant funding. King Khaled had invited Ali to Saudi Arabia not just because of his boxing prowess, but for something far more significant: his conversion to Islam and his status as the most famous Muslim athlete in the world. The king was a passionate admirer of Ali's courage in standing up for his religious beliefs, even when it cost him 3.5 years of his prime fighting career during the Vietnam War. This wasn't going to be just a ceremonial visit. The king had a proposal that would change everything. "Mr. Ali," King Khaled said through his translator, surrounded by advisors and royal attendants in a room that seemed to drip with gold and precious stones, "you have brought honor to Islam through your courage and your faith. The entire Muslim world looks up to you." Ali, who had traveled to Saudi Arabia with his wife Veronica and a small entourage, nodded respectfully. He had always been moved by how his conversion to Islam had resonated with Muslims around the world, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. "I have a proposition for you," King Khaled continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute power. "I want to offer you something that will secure your future and the future of your family for generations to come." The king gestured to one of his advisors, who stepped forward carrying an ornate briefcase that probably cost more than most people's houses. Inside were documents that would change Ali's life forever, if he chose to accept them. What the king proposed was almost incomprehensible in its scope and generosity: the 100 million, upfront. In 1978, that was an astronomical sum that would be worth over 400 million today. But this wasn't payment for a single fight or even a series of fights. This was something entirely different. "I want you to become the official representative of Saudi Arabia and Islam to the world," King Khaled explained, his eyes never leaving Ali's face. "You would be our global ambassador, traveling to every nation, speaking about the true nature of Islam, countering the misconceptions that exist in the Western world." The terms were extraordinary beyond imagination. The 100 million upfront, a palace in Riyadh worth tens of millions more, a private jet for his travels, an annual salary of 10 million for the rest of his life, complete financial security for his children and grandchildren. Ali would spend 6 months of each year in Saudi Arabia and the other 6 months traveling the world as the kingdom's representative, spreading the message of Islam with the full backing of one of the world's wealthiest nations. It was, quite literally, an offer that no rational person could refuse. But then King Khaled mentioned the one condition that would prove to be the deal breaker. "Of course," the king added, almost casually, "you would need to renounce your American citizenship and become a Saudi citizen. You would also need to move your family here permanently and fully embrace the Saudi way of life." The room fell silent. Ali's entourage exchanged glances, clearly recognizing the magnitude of what was being offered. This wasn't just money. This was generational wealth beyond imagination. The kind of financial security that would make Ali and his descendants wealthy for centuries. But it would also mean giving up the one thing that had defined Muhammad Ali's entire identity, being an American who fought for justice within his own country. That evening, back in his luxurious guest quarters, Ali wrestled with the most difficult decision of his life. His financial advisor, who had accompanied him on the trip, laid out the numbers in stark, undeniable terms. "Muhammad, this is more money than you could make in 100 lifetimes of boxing." The advisor said, his voice filled with urgency. "Your children, your grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren would never have to worry about money again. This would solve every financial concern you've ever had." And it was true. Despite his success in the ring, Ali's finances were constantly strained. His generous nature meant he was supporting extended family, friends, and various causes. The purses from his fights, while substantial, were quickly distributed to others or invested in ventures that didn't always pan out. Veronica, his wife, was conflicted. She could see the appeal of the offer, but she also understood her husband better than anyone. "Muhammad," she said quietly as they sat together that night, the weight of the decision hanging between them like a physical presence. "What does your heart tell you?" Ali was silent for a long time, staring out the window at the desert landscape that stretched endlessly into the darkness. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful and measured, carrying the weight of a man who had spent his entire life fighting for something bigger than himself. "My heart tells me that some things are worth more than money," he said slowly. "My heart tells me that America, for all its problems, is still my home. My heart tells me that I can't represent Islam authentically if I'm being paid to do it." The words hung in the air like a prayer. But Ali wasn't finished. "If I take this money, I become Saudi Arabia's employee. But if I speak about Islam from my own heart, from my own experience, then my words have power because they're true, not because they're paid for." The next morning, Ali met again with King Khaled. The palace was even more magnificent in the daylight, with sunbeams streaming through stained glass windows and reflecting off golden fixtures that probably cost more than most people would earn in a lifetime. King Khaled was confident that Ali would accept. After all, who could turn down such an offer? Overnight, the king had even sweetened the deal, adding another 20 million and offering to build Ali his own mosque anywhere in the world. The total package was now worth 120 million, plus lifetime benefits that would have made Ali one of the wealthiest men in America. "Have you reached your decision?" King Khaled asked, smiling warmly, completely certain of the answer. Ali stood up, and for a moment, everyone in the room held their breath. This was one of the wealthiest men in the world, offering an almost unimaginable fortune to one of the most famous athletes on earth. "Your Majesty," Ali began, his voice clear and strong, "I am deeply honored by your generosity and your faith in me. The amount of money you're offering is beyond anything I could have ever imagined." He paused, and the king leaned forward expectantly, ready to celebrate. "But I must respectfully decline." The silence in the room was deafening. King Khaled's advisors looked at each other in disbelief. The translator asked Ali to repeat what he had said, certain there had been some misunderstanding. But Ali was just getting started, and what he said next would break the heart of anyone who has ever struggled to choose between security and authenticity. "Your Majesty, I became a Muslim because I believed it was the right path for me spiritually, not because I was looking for financial gain." Ali's voice grew stronger with each word, filled with a conviction that money could never buy. "If I accept your money and your citizenship, people will question whether my faith is real or whether it was just a business decision. I want to represent Islam to the world. But I want to do it as Muhammad Ali from Louisville, Kentucky." He looked directly at the king, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I want people to see that you can be a proud American and a devout Muslim at the same time. I want to show them that Islam isn't foreign to America. It's part of America." The king was stunned. In his world, money solved almost every problem and fulfilled almost every desire. But here was a man turning down 120 million based purely on principle. Ali's next words would become one of the most profound statements about integrity ever made by an athlete. "Your Majesty, you don't need to pay me to represent Islam. Islam has already given me everything I need. Peace in my heart, strength in my character, and purpose in my life. If I have to choose between 100 million and my authenticity as a Muslim American, I choose my authenticity every time." The tears in Ali's eyes weren't from sadness, they were from the overwhelming weight of choosing his soul over security. He gestured toward the opulent surroundings, his voice breaking slightly with emotion. "This palace is beautiful, but my home is in America, with all its problems and all its possibilities. I can't fight for justice in America if I'm not an American. I can't speak to the American people about Islam if I've abandoned my American identity for money. I want to be a bridge between the Muslim world and America, Ali concluded, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow filling the entire room. But bridges work because they connect two different places while remaining anchored to both sides. If I move entirely to one side, I can't be a bridge anymore. For several minutes, King Khaled said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with a respect that surprised everyone in the room. Mr. Ali, the king said slowly, in my entire life, I have never met a man who would turn down such wealth for such reasons. The king stood up and walked over to Ali, placing his hand on the champion's shoulder with genuine reverence. You have just proven to me that you are exactly the kind of man who should represent Islam to the world. Your refusal of my money makes me respect you more than your acceptance ever could. You are right. If you took my money, people would question your motives. But by refusing it, you have shown that your faith is priceless. The king paused, clearly moved by Ali's response. I withdraw my offer of money and citizenship, but I give you something more valuable, my friendship and my support for whatever you choose to do with your life. You will always be welcome in Saudi Arabia, not as an employee, but as a brother. The ripple effects of Ali's decision would echo through history in ways no one could have imagined. His refusal to accept the money became a powerful statement about the difference between genuine faith and commercialized religion. In the years that followed, Ali's authenticity as a Muslim spokesperson was never questioned. When he spoke about Islam, people listened not because he was being paid to speak, but because they knew his conversion had cost him millions of dollars. The decision also enhanced Ali's credibility as an American. By choosing to remain in the United States despite the financial incentives to leave, he demonstrated that his criticism of American policies came from a place of love and desire for improvement, not from disloyalty or opportunism. But what many people didn't realize was the personal cost of Ali's decision. Beyond the obvious financial sacrifice, turning down the Saudi offer meant continued financial stress for years to come. In the early 1980s, as Ali's boxing career wound down and his earning potential decreased, the weight of his decision became more apparent. Medical bills began mounting as the early signs of what would later be diagnosed as Parkinson's disease started appearing. Yet Ali never wavered in his conviction that he had made the right choice. When friends occasionally brought up the Saudi offer, he would simply smile and say, Allah provides for those who choose the right path. Despite Ali's refusal of the financial offer, his relationship with the Saudi royal family remained strong throughout his life. King Khaled kept his promise of friendship, and subsequent Saudi kings continued to treat Ali with enormous respect and affection. When Ali lit the Olympic torch at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, representatives from the Saudi royal family were among the first to congratulate him. They saw his performance that night, standing before the world with Parkinson's disease but unbowed in spirit, as vindication of their original assessment of his character. Ali's decision inspired countless other public figures who found themselves facing similar choices between financial gain and personal integrity. Athletes, entertainers, and public intellectuals began referencing the Ali standard when discussing whether to accept lucrative offers that might compromise their principles. In the decades following his refusal of the Saudi offer, Ali's decision was repeatedly vindicated. His credibility as a spokesman for Islam and for social justice remained unquestioned precisely because people knew he couldn't be bought. When Ali spoke about religious tolerance, racial equality, or social justice, his words carried weight because everyone knew he had turned down enormous sums of money rather than compromise his ability to speak truth to power. The authenticity that he preserved by refusing the Saudi money became his most valuable asset, worth far more than any financial payment could ever have been. Muhammad Ali proved that day in Riyadh that he truly was the greatest, not just as a boxer, but as a man who understood that some victories can only be achieved by walking away from the fight. His refusal of $100 million from a king became the ultimate proof that Muhammad Ali's principles were not for sale at any price. And the most powerful statement a man can make is sometimes the offer he chooses to refuse. The reason Muhammad Ali said no to $100 million breaks our hearts because it reminds us of what we've lost in a world where everything seems to have a price. Ali showed us that some things, authenticity, integrity, the ability to speak truth to power are worth more than all the money in the world. In choosing his soul over security, he gave us permission to believe that maybe, just maybe, we can be better than our bank accounts. That's why his reason breaks our hearts. Because it reminds us who we used to be and who we still could be if we had the courage to say no to the things that would make us rich but leave us empty. Muhammad Ali looked at 100 million and saw what it would cost him, and he decided that price was too high. That's what made him the greatest. Not just in the ring, but in life.